It is time to rip and ray trace. It is Couch Coop. We are looking at Doom Eternal. The new update has given us not only a PlayStation 5 version of the game, but it's added in ray tracing. Now, before we move forward, let's just get this clarified. I just want to go over exactly what ray tracing is, and it's basically a technique for producing visual realism with light and using it to bounce off objects. We're going to be looking at reflections, refraction, scattering, the dissipation of the light. It's basically an optical effect. We're going to see it in stuff like puddles on the ground and all of the ambient light or artificial light within the game map itself. We do actually have ray tracing in PlayStation 5 games like Call of Duty 5. There's some of it in Cyberpunk. We'll see more of it in Cyberpunk with the PlayStation 5 official release. But this is what I want to get back to. This Near 2 No Man's Sky, really cool upgrades to the PlayStation 5 version. Yeah, you have to reinstall the whole damn thing on your SSD drive, but holy crap, is it worth it. Crystal clear everything, and of course it's all at 60 frames per second. Now you may also know that there's a balance mode as well, which we're going to check out slightly later in the video, but I want to look at some of the cutscenes, see how this lighting technique has changed some of the stuff that I remember being back on the PlayStation 4 Pro and looking extremely good even back then. So here's the deal. A game like Doom doesn't really fall back on its amazing landscapes. It does fall back on its amazing interiors and visuals, but it's not like a Neo Tokyo dystopia set in the middle of the night. There isn't a huge amount of massive light sources, but when you find them or when you look at them in detail and see that some of these bouncings of the rays massively increases in certain scenic areas. I know these are actual skyboxes and you can't actually interact with them, but when you start looking deeper, you start seeing some huge jumps in graphical fidelity with this game. And that's one of the things I want to mention is if there was any game on Earth that didn't need to improve its graphical fidelity, it was probably Doom Eternal. But now we've got these unbelievably next level and beautifully smooth detailed looking reflections on a lot of the normal ground that just weren't this noticeable or looked this spectacular before. And of course we're running it on the 5, that does increase things on an aspect ratio compared to the base game or PlayStation 4 versions.
Beauty of the world we have created.
Doom is like one of the hardest captured games to get smooth footage from because of this high speed frame rate and movement of the character. It's so hard to get a nice smooth angle on a dolly or actually show off the game's smoothness because you just either run at 1,000 miles an hour or you run at 1 mile an hour. But I managed to find some pretty beautiful spots. But does any of this tech or any of this good looking stuff bleed into the combat?
You will not save them from their judgment.
The short answer is yes. There's so much going on with the reflections and the speed of the game that actually getting to see some of this new update in action is not easy, and it's only looking at the replays and slowing some of the footage down, even taking freeze frames of just seeing how dramatic the reflections are on the floor and how they respond to different light sources and the surfaces, how they reflect all of the explosions. Some of the light will just completely wash over certain scenes and it will douse enemies and make them look completely different. And of course that goes with the explosions and the different particle effects that show off the different enemies. Very nice to see some of this 430 quid coming through with my PlayStation 5 now. This was one of the games I was very much looking forward to having the sort of PlayStation 5 makeover. There's a few more on the list that we've got coming up, but this is certainly for free one of the best PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 upgrades. I just finished a video on my top racers, and Wreckfest was also extremely highly mentioned when it came to improvements when they sat that thing onto the 5. Modern ray tracing techniques are really good for atmospherics, and they're very good for making scenes look dramatic, scary, foreboding. They're awesome when you have a direction of light coming through mist, or you want stuff to appear through it. You've got so much to work with there. One of the games that I really want to see excellent ray tracing improvements on, or a PlayStation 5 edition of, is of course Alien Isolation. I talk about that game's use of light without all of this new tech, and it's still amazing. So I cannot wait to see what they're going to do on that front. I did mention before that there was more than one mode when it came to this new PlayStation 5 version of Doom Eternal, and it is the balanced mode, which takes ray tracing off and of course heightens the frame rates. Now this is the thing, when we've got ray tracing on, I think we've got a dip or a variable, because it's certainly not pegged at 60. And here's the kicker, this is the balance on, this is ray tracing off, and when I go and switch it over, it's not like blown away, all the shadows change, light sources look richer, there's just softer and sort of less hard edges when it comes to a lot of the detailed shadows. Not dramatic stuff, but the thing about the balance mode, or the performance mode as I'd like to call it, is the game's performance. So it handles the frame rates so well, and the fact that you're not having ray tracing isn't a huge blow, because this game moves so fast anyway that you're not soaking all of it up. It's just a nice thing to have, and that's why I talk about games like Alien Isolation or stuff like Fallout 4, where you're creeping around in a darkened sewer and light sources become really important. With Doom Eternal, it's just a massive flashy fairground, a gory fairground, and a damn good fairground. This scene shows things off quite well. If you know this section of the game, then you'll see that that light source is increased, it's more dramatic, there's more bouncing around, and of course when it comes to a lot of the neon lights and the electricity, you can see loads more action with reflections and different things happening everywhere. It's completely crazy. I'm massively happy. Doom Eternal is now proudly on our PlayStation 5s, and condolences guys if you've not got your machine yet. It is coming. It's one of the first things you should play. I'll see you down there.